Let's go ahead and get started. Now, I just want to introduce you to the folks that will be speaking for just part of the time, but the majority of your time is going to be spent with Nikolas. My name is Missy Fairfax. I'm the strategy director for the New England region. If we haven't met, please take down my email address. Feel free to reach out to me. If you haven't had yet an invitation to the one for next week, reach out again and I'll get you that Zoom link. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, and he will introduce himself in a second, but Nikolas Huot, who is the AVP of Institutional Transformation. So we're thrilled to have him on the line. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with CCA, just want to give you a quick overview. We are a bold national advocate for increasing college completion rates and closing the institutional performance gaps. We are intentionally saying institutional performance gaps because the issues do not lie with the students, but with the ways that we have designed our institutions. And so doing this work, we partner with states such as yours, systems institutions, and we have national partners as well. And these are all to scale 18 strategies that we have across our 4 pillars. I do the support pillar. Nikolas is, I'm about to mess this up, the structure pillar. The momentum. Nikolas, am I getting them all wrong?
I'm purpose.
Purpose pillar. Apologies. Apologies are all on the
Purpose
line.
first.
Purpose first, which is the webinar that you're on. So all that to say, the CC Alliance is made up of 49 systems and consortiums, which you can see here. And as you can see too, in terms of the New England region, that we have been in your region for quite some time, and a number of your leadership is probably quite familiar with us. That to be said, though, what is our larger vision? It's to make sure that we welcome in, invest, and support our students. And that's through making sure that there's progression, they understand their purpose, which is why we're speaking here today. And then also understand and have the momentum, the structure, and the support to make sure that they can thrive and be successful in their endeavors of completing a credential or a degree. Now, the last thing I want to hit on, and then I'm going to pass it over to Nikolas, is just talking about what our large approach is. And we do this through strategic initiatives such as our policy, equity, and practice work that we do, which is PEP, PBC and HBCC community colleges, which Nikolas oversees, and then the publications and insights that well over a decade that we have been publishing and moving the needle in terms of the greater success that we need to have on our campuses to ensure the success of our students. And then lastly, I'll just say that we're a network of change agents. What does that mean? We work with and partner with a number of institutions, associations, partners, fellows, and our board, who are practitioners, researchers in their own right, who influence and guide the work that we do. And then lastly, if you haven't connected with CCA before, so here are some Twitter and our LinkedIn information, just encourage you to do all of that. So back to our main attraction, I will stop sharing and then turn it over to Nikolas.
All right, thank you, Missy. Can you see my my screen? Perfect. I see that you. Yes, let me get the chat up. So, by the way, make sure and feel free to put questions or comments in the chat. I want to make sure that if you have any questions, I'm able to answer them. So, as Missy said, I'm Nikolas Huot. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Institutional Transformation at CCA. I've been at CCA for almost 6 years now, and I work predominantly with strategies around purpose. So how do we support students making informed decisions around their majors, making sure they understand the relevance and the connections between their degree and their chosen career, as well as states in the Southeast. So I'm currently in Charleston, South Carolina. But this is not about me. This is about the students. This is about purpose first and how the institutions can best support our students. So I'm going to jump right in. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll hopefully can address them, or Missy can address them as well. So the first question I have, and if you're not putting it in the chat, feel free to think about this in your heads, like, how are students choosing majors right now? And I'll give you a hint. The way students are choosing majors right now is pretty much the same, the same way that students were choosing majors like 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago or something like that. And I'm sure that you probably have like, an idea in your head. The first one, of course, is mom and dad. So their parents, I hear that a lot, like, mom and dad wants me to be a doctor, or my dad says I argue a lot, so I should be a good lawyer. Which every time I hear that, I never think it's it's a compliment, but whatever. So how students basically are choosing, a lot of it is adults, and their parents and their family that basically steer them towards specific majors or potential careers. Also, what sounds cool, I mean, I'm old enough, and even then, I was still old by the time that CSI came on, and the families, the family of CSI shows and things like that. And I know when it first started, a lot of students were like, "Wow, that sounds cool!" Like, the science or fake science and things like that. And a lot of folks would go into criminal justice, again, not understanding really that what they thought was cool in the show had nothing to do with criminal justice, but much more around the science associated with it. And another way also that students are choosing majors right now is based on their peers. So what are their friends thinking about? Like, what are they also going to, so that they can be following in their friends footpaths, or their same friend groups and things like that at colleges or universities. The problem is that when you make those decisions that are, let's be honest, like uninformed, like basically just someone else, a lot of it is influencing you, or you don't have the full picture, is that you're going to get, bad information, and you're going to get something that is not necessarily associated with what you are interested in, or you're going to get the full picture. So what we're seeing is that, Strata and Gallup, and I know it's 6 years ago, but they looked at and they surveyed students who had some college. So some of them had some college, no degree, others had actually graduated. And they asked them, like, if you were to redo your entire college experience, what would you change? And over a third of them would say, I would choose a different major. And that's pretty significant when you think about it, because, again, a lot of them had graduated with a major that they did not particularly, feel was connected to their majors or their careers, or a good fit for them, and others who basically had left partly because their majors did not seem like it was a good fit for them. They were not particularly interested. It was like not what they thought it was going to be. And this is, I mentioned, this is over 6 years ago. So I'd be very interested in saying, if you were to redo the same survey, if Strata and Gallup were to do the same survey, what would it look like? And I'm pretty sure that right now it probably go a lot higher than 36% on, based on the students who are looking at their majors. Partly is because this is what it is. Like, we are basically letting the students up to their own devices. And this is our strategy. We hope that students pick the right major. We pride ourselves on the number of majors that we have on our website. Like, if you look, we have majors and concentrations and minors and certificates and diplomas and this, that, and the other. Choose, like it. And if you're on the website, it just keeps on scrolling, scrolling. And we expect students to understand which one's the right fit for them. We expect, and we assume that somehow students understand the difference between accounting, econ, finance, actual sciences. Do people even at your institution who are not in the business school know the difference between these majors? I would say probably not. And somehow we're expecting students to know these things and to pick the right major based on that information. We hope that students find the information on the website, and good luck with that. I mean, I think one of the homeworks that I would suggest to you is find your information. Like, if you were a student, how easy is it for you to actually find the information relevant to a major, a career, what the labor market data is, information? Where is it? Is it in one location? Is it pretty much all over the place? How easy is it to find? And how easy is it to understand? I mean, let's be honest, most of the websites that we have are pretty much based on our structure, on the structure of the institution, not on based on the student experience. And we're, again, hoping that students know how to navigate the website and find the right information. So we also understand that we hope that they understand the connections between one major and their career. I think it's in some cases it may be simple, for like, well, I'm a nursing major, so I'm interested in nursing. Okay, but how do you get to pre-law, for example, or law school? There's so many different ways and to actually get there, but also what are you going to learn in those majors and those programs that will actually help you, be successful and actually prepare you for a career. So why should students go in college in the first place? That's something that's not very clear. And let's be honest, this is our strategy. We kind of leave it up to their own devices for hope. We hope that they make the right pick in that aspect of it. So the problem is that we do have maps, we have websites. Talk about the websites, how a lot of it, they're not very student friendly in how we provide the information. But the issue is like when we're trying to support students making informed decisions, a map is not the easier way or the only thing that we need to address. We really need to help students and actively help and engage students with finding out where are they right now, where they want to go, and why they're going. So not simply like you want to be a doctor, good, end of discussion, let me register you in STEM courses, but why? What are you interested in? Do you know what you're going to do, and what actually drives you to become, a doctor? And do you know, if you become a biology major, chemistry major, biochemistry, whatever it is, that what are you going to learn, and why is that something that's going to help you move forward towards your career? So those questions, I think, right now, again, we need to be intentionally asking the students and actively engaging the students in those questions as we're helping them move forward and progress towards their degrees. So I would actually encourage you to start taking notes about those kind of things, about what information do you think students need in order for them to make informed decisions. And I would also ask you, like, when do you think that we should actually support and provide the information in that case? What type of career assessments do you have already available on your campus? What personal inventories do you have on your campus? Where are they? And how are you actually integrating them into the student experience? And do you know what information actually students are interested in getting? So when's the last time you actually talked to an incoming class of students, or even potential students as you're recruiting them? It's like, what information would be helpful for you as you are embarking into the college experience that would actually help you onboard effectively and successfully into a program that aligns with your goals and your aspirations? So start thinking about that information and really start asking students about what information they need. And again, look at your website. Where's that information? How can you make it a little bit more easy for them to access and and use? So I know this is a very busy slide, and I apologize for that. I basically combined two in this one here. But one thing that I want to emphasize is how we must actively and intentionally engage all students. So again, this cannot be we hope students get that information. We hope students visit their website, their academic advisors, or we hope that students avail themselves of the services that we have on campus. It cannot be a passive experience. We need to actively engage and intentionally integrate those activities and their services into the student experience. And mention, please notice that I put all students. So a lot of times we only focus our efforts around careers and around exploration for the undeclared students. And that's fine. They definitely need, the support. But I would argue that every single student need the support, not because you're declared that you are decided, and not because you're declared that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. I mean, how many times have you, you or your colleagues or even the students that have changed majors because they did not know what was available, or they did not know what their majors really was about. So I think every single student's intentionality and actively engaging them. So again, the website is great, but how are you actually engaging students in having them, go through and navigate the website and find the information that you already have in here, because this is what we see. I mean, and this should not be as a surprise for you, especially if you deal with students, that when you leave students to make uninformed decisions around their purpose, around their majors, around their careers, what you have is a significant impact in terms of students who change their majors, who take too many credits to graduate, if they graduate at all. The costs obviously associated with it, and we need to understand also that Black, Latinx, first generation students from low income communities are not getting the same access to the information, and basically the consistency and persistence of institutional performance gaps and opportunity gaps towards social mobility will persist. So we need to be, again, intentional and mindful to include every single student in that regard. And these are some of the stats. I think that one thing that's mindful to me is like or important is that we already know this, right? I mean, that the majority of students who are coming to college are coming to get a job, and somehow we're not actively engaging students in that particular pursuit and that discussion. So again, we need to be mindful, we need to be intentional in that aspect of it. I like the 63%. And again, that was like over 5 years ago. I need to see what NASPA has found in terms of more recent stats. But what we do see is that more students find value in their education if they understand the relevance. And I think that's human nature, right? If I know why I'm doing something and I know that what I'm doing is relevant and has value and will help me move forward, I'm more likely to actually see, the purpose, and actually see to engage and be more intentional in how I'm engaged in my studies and the task at hand. One thing I also want to emphasize is the 39 million students who have some college left, but left without a degree. And this is 2022. 2 years ago, NSC looked at the same data, and it was 36 million. So obviously the pandemic and a lot of other things happen, but more and more adults, unfortunately, are attending college. And because we're not actively engaging them into like, why are you here? How can we help you? Let me give you the resources to make sure that we align with your goals, that a lot of them will leave and thinking that college is not for them. I'm not saying that this is all 39 millions of them, but there's a large population, a large part of those students who just basically leave college because it's a big money and time investment, and they just don't see the value, they just don't see the connection that they have with them. Now, before I move forward, I just want to make sure that as I'm talking about purpose first and I'm talking about the different strategies, I want to make sure that I'm not just here talking about the high school graduates that are about to start college. I think that as you're thinking about purpose first, as you're thinking about providing information and embedding information and resources around career, around majors, and so on and so forth, that this is not just for 18-year-olds who are about to start college, but also for adults who are coming to college for the first time or returning to college. We can't assume that these students as well know the labor market data, that they know all the different majors, they know what they're going to do in this particular this different program. So we need to make sure that every single student, not just the 18-year-olds, have access to that information, and that we actively engage them in the practice of career and major exploration. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about purpose first. So it's how we actively supporting students in developing a sense of career purpose prior to them making a decision about their major, or at least as early as possible. When we're talking about purpose first, we are not talking about a one office initiative. So this is not, purpose first is not simply a career services initiative that they have to deal with it. Let us know what you find out, and then we'll maybe integrate it. When we're talking about purpose first and the different strategies, just like most of other strategies, we need to bring everyone at the table. They need to be informed, they need to be involved, they need to be shared about like what their perspectives are, what are their roles in this particular initiative. So as you see, and this is the picture, if you're like, what is it? Those are silos being demolished. So we need to break the silos down. We need to bring different perspectives and different folks to the table to really have that commitment and build it into the culture. And you do see here students. I think that we do so much for students without always engaging students. So that's kind of a problem, right? I mean, we need to make sure that they are at the table, that they're able to tell us a little bit more about what resonates with them, what information they wish they would receive, when, and so on and so forth. So CCA originally, so Purpose First is not a new initiative. Like we started at least 5 years ago, and we partner with these organizations, and you may recognize some of them around enrollment management, admissions, academic advising, career services, and student affairs. And we all came together, and we pretty much came up with a publication. I'll share you the link at the end. I'll provide you with the link at the end of the presentation where you can access it for free. But those are some shared beliefs that we came up with together, all 6 organizations together, about how higher education should be a launching pad toward a meaningful career, that the career exploration and planning must be intentional and start early, that it has to be part of the culture of the institution to really, help students navigate through their college experience. Another question that I would ask, and again, some of these questions that I'm asking right now, I'm going to ask a little bit more when we are in person in the fall, but I think start thinking about, when and how do you actually introduce career to students? When you start that conversation, when do you start providing that information to students? How early? Is it a one-time and that's all, or is it an invitation maybe to talk to career services every so often and things like that? So when are you actually doing it? So really look at your current practices and start talking to your colleagues, because I think a lot of times we are experts in our areas, but we don't really know what else is going on in enrollment management or student affairs. So when are those conversations and discussions and information presented to students? So start mapping the student's experience in your head, if you will. So I'm not going to go through all these best practices. Again, a very busy slide here, but what we see here again is the intentionality of practices and processes, thinking about how we make sure that every single student has access to the information, how we make sure we touch every single student, whether they're brand new students, returning, continuing students at the institution, how to make sure that they are involved in the career and the major exploration. And obviously, we need to realize that the information that is presented during the first year or as they're about to start college is not the same, the information needed as they're moving and progressing towards their degree. So how we, again, intentionally make sure that we have check-ins, that we do build in different information and provide it and integrate it into the career experience as the students move forward. That includes, obviously, experiential learning, internships, and other opportunities that exist, probably not in the first semester, but in some cases the second, third year, or even a second year, during an associate degree project or program. And we know that when students actually are involved, when we actually are intentional in including the information, engaging students in that conversation, and make sure they understand that we have a lot of information and we want that discussion and that conversation to happen with them. And when we're being explicit and not hoping that students get it, this is what we see. Like, we do see that students, understand the connections to why am I actually pursuing this particular major? What am I learning is actually relevant to my potential career. It's not, again, left up to their own devices for them to translate learning outcomes into skills and competencies, but we're actually being explicit. We talk about it and students understand what the connection is. Again, greater completion, we get them into the major classes earlier as well, and reduce opportunity gaps, because then we're able to make sure that the the representation of students, especially Black, Latinx, like I said, first generation, and students from low income communities, are actually represented and actually are participating and have access to the information to make informed decisions around majors that tend to pay a little bit higher based on STEM business and health sciences, for example. And these are some of the examples, and I'll get to institutional examples in a minute. But what we see, for example, so Houston Community College, what they saw in this case, they did start specifically with the undeclared students, and what they saw is that they pinpoint and they reach out to every single undeclared student and assign them a career coach. So one-on-one person who would basically ask them like, hey, what's going on? Let's talk. What are you interested in? Because a lot of times undeclared students, it's not that they have no clue at all. They just don't really know. They have like maybe 3 or 4 different options. So having an opportunity to talk with someone to basically share the information and help students make informed decisions led them to decrease significantly the number of undeclared majors. And when we talk about a 2-year degree, we want to make sure we get them into the college courses that are relevant to their programs as early as possible. So basically, we saw a significant decrease in students who were swirling or were still kind of exploring, and get them onto the right path that align with our goals. One thing that you may have heard about EAB, one thing that they do, and they're not the only ones, but they're the ones who were able to share some data with us, is when you provide the information early around the major. So what they were and probably still are doing is students who's basically in Navigate who has declared a particular major, so psychology, for example, EAB would be able, and you're able to provide the information about psychology. So you say you're interested in psychology. Let me tell you more about this. And kind of the Netflix model, you also may be interested in sociology, anthropology, and so on, so on. So you start the conversation and you provide them the information with other similar programs and majors that are somewhat relevant, somewhat connected in social sciences, for example, if you're talking about psychology, and get them a better understanding and are able to differentiate between the different majors. And what they saw is that students, when you're providing them with that information, over a quarter of them change majors right there and then before they even start registering for classes. So again, they changed majors, but they did so in an informed way with information in their back pocket. So they knew why then they were more interested in sociology rather than psychology, for example. And the same thing, My Majors is another vendor that helps facilitate that information and that student engagement. And Baker College saw that by providing that information as early as possible and labor market data as well, they saw that fewer students were then changing majors as they were progressing. Again, because by the time that they were selecting a major, they did so with more certainty and were less likely to enter with less information in their back pockets. So some information, again, we didn't go into too much about how CCA operates, but we do a lot about data, policy, and practices. This is one policy example, for example. So the College of Southern Nevada didn't just talk about it. They basically made sure that it was built into the policy that the college would share information and help students identify major that aligns with their goals. So if you go to their website, you may still see short videos around the different meta majors. So what are different, and you call them meta majors, interest groups, it doesn't really matter what you call them, but basically help them understand a little bit about different areas that are aligned with disciplines and careers. And basically they built it into the system that as every single student entering college has to go through a process of identifying their majors, identifying their meta majors, and providing them with information. And by building it into the cake, they wrote it into the policy. They didn't just do the policy aspect of it and the short videos. they also redesigned their academic advising. So now there's collaboration. So again, breaking the silos is not just not academic advising, it's now academic advising and career services, where they collaborated and redesigned the curriculum of academic advising to incorporate career discussion at certain points of the student progressing towards their program. So I know it's a little bit harder to read here, but there's clear conversation about like, hey, let's talk about your major, let's talk about your careers. There's check-ins like, how's it doing? Are you still sure about this major? Because again, that's something that the conversation about major cannot just be a one and done. We make sure that we go back to students and see like, is this what you thought it was going to be, and make sure that have that conversation. But they have again, intentional touch points to students to talk about majors, to talk about careers, and about transfer, as well as this is a 2-year school. So if you were interested in going to a 4-year or pursuing your education in a different way, how else would it go, and what different venues or avenues are available to you? Houston Community College is another great example where basically they redesigned the onboarding. So I talked about how they were intentionally connecting undeclared students with career coaches to have the conversation as early on. What they've done also is incorporated the career assessment in the admissions and in the student orientation as well. So it's not just, again, once students are enrolled, is even before students are enrolled, we are basically tying or providing them the information around career, and we're basically engaging students about let's go through this assessment together, and then after you complete that assessment, let's have that conversation. Is this what you thought it was going to be? What conversation can we have? What other information and resources can we provide to you so that you make an informed decision? Again, it's part of the academic advising as well, and they built it into the curriculum to include experiential and workplace learning. So every single project, or every program rather, now includes experiential learning in different program. And just want to take back a few more examples that I particularly like. Colorado State University included career assessment on their website. So you don't even have to apply to Colorado State. You can, and same with Arizona State, you basically can go through their main website and take a career assessment. And by having that, and by directing prospective students into that career assessment, what they saw is that they saw an increase, or decrease rather, in the summer melt. So more students now, again, by taking the career assessment, by having a conversation and seeing the relevance between the careers and the majors and the programs available at the institution, were basically more likely to understand the value and the relevance of a college degree to attain their goals. And the result was a decrease in summer melt. So, which is always a good thing when we're talking about enrollment management. And the same, University of Oklahoma also included a career assessment in the admissions process. So as the students are going through to apply to University of Oklahoma, one of the requirements is to take a career assessment. So again, by the time that you select your major, you've had an opportunity to assess yourself, to really think through about, why did I say that originally I was thinking about biology or anthropology or English, that now I'm actually starting to think a little bit more about why, and how's it going to connect to potential careers and things like that. So again, intentionality of activities, and how we make sure that we can bring students into bring them the information that they need as early as possible. Houston Community College, again, another great example where they redesigned their first year experience. And again, this is a fairly low lift if you already have a first year experience course, for example. Houston Community College required it for all of their students. They had a specific course for health sciences because of their areas of needs that they've identified, and some of the assessments and activities that were included in that test were catered specifically for these students. but every single course includes an experiential learning activity. And you see them on the screen right now. They include career assessment. They use Lightcast Careers Coach. So if you don't know, it's a vendor that helps students navigate and research some of the majors and career connections, labor market data as well. And they basically get them by the end of the first year onto a pathway that aligns with the students' goals and career aspirations. So again, the intentionality of this is crucial in that regard. Other great information, and I really like this. It doesn't show it on very well on the screen right now. It's more of a scroll down than a side by side. But what I really like about University of Delaware is the information that they're able to provide. So we've been talking about labor market data and so on and so forth. What University of Delaware has done is they looked at their alumni, and they basically have been surveying them. And as you see at the top, as a student, prospective students, I can look at that. I can basically do my own research around different majors. I can select 2 clicks. It takes me 2 clicks to get to that information from the main website. And I can select what degree am I interested in, what major am I interested in. So I can select, the BA in psychology. I can select accounting. I can select English, whatever it is. And all the data that flows through it is their own data. It's basically alumni information, students who've graduated from these particular majors, in terms of how many of them are employed or pursuing education, what are their career outcomes, if they are continuing education, what are their degrees, what field, their salary information as well, location, and as well as top programs, if they are following, so if they're following into a master's or so on and so forth, what other areas are they actually pursuing? So this, to me, is a great snapshot from a student's perspective, in terms of, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to be a trailblazer. I know that students who are, who've come to University of Delaware, pursued a bachelor's of arts in psychology, have been quite successful. And if you go down also on the website, you'll see more information about the programs, the courses rather, that they need to take, and so on and so forth. So the information is easily accessible, easy to understand, visually appealing as well. So it's, this is not, I don't need to be a mathematician to understand, what's out there. The only issue that we need to make sure, and that's one I'm not sure, is how do I make sure that students actively engage with it? Because this cannot be a passive exercise. This cannot just be like, we built it, it's on our website, hopefully students will access it. It cannot be we hope that students access it. How do we make sure that, admissions counselors, academic advisors, orientation leaders actually use this and integrate it into their processes, so that students can start looking into what are they getting themselves into, and what are the potential outcomes associated with their chosen majors, and what else? Like, let's learn a little bit more about the difference between BA psychology and BS psychology. Like, are you confident that students understand the difference between these two? I'm pretty sure that no, they are not. So this is a great opportunity to present great data and provide great information, so that students know a little bit more what they get themselves into, easily accessible, and we just make sure that they're intentional. CUNY does the same thing. I'm not sure about the black background or the blue background. Don't tell them that. But again, it's great information about like the outcomes once students graduate from a specific major. How much are they going to make? I think that's a real area that we need to address. We can just like, well, they got a job. Like, great. Well, not jobs are created equal. So what programs lead to what outcomes? What are the wages after graduation? So there's a range. So let's talk about that as well. So again, it's great information. We need to make sure that how we actively engage students with this, and really engage students in understanding the ranges. I think that when we look at institutions' website, the information connected to salary tends to be mid-range, like 5 to 10 years or so after students graduate and have started in their career. And we know that students will overshot, will overestimate how much they're going to make. So let's make sure that we have the conversation about what does median outcome mean, but also how about we actually provide them information about starting salary instead, so that they know, so they're not shocked, when they were, like you said on your website, I should be making $60,000, and here I am making 45. What's going on? Like, you did not prepare me to get the $60,000 job. No, that's a median salary, but we don't tell them that. So let's make sure that we just not only provide them with relevant information, that we also help them make sense of the information that we provide them on our website. One thing that I like, and we haven't really talked a little bit more about, what happens into the classroom. That's something that when we go into the fall meeting, we can go a little bit more into. Focus a little bit more on the onboarding aspect or during the first year, the processes. But this is something that at my former institution, Georgia State, what they've designed, they use the NACE's career competencies. And you may be familiar with NACE, National Association of Career and Employers. And what they've done, so where NACE every year surveys employers and identify what are the skills and competencies that are most in need, regardless of the different disciplines and so on and so forth. So what my colleague, as George said, did, they tried to basically help faculty members connect and translate learning outcomes into skills and competencies, so that students are then able to articulate when they meet with an employer what they've actually learned, what are they able to do, and at what proficiency level, and so on and so forth. So this is just an image here, but this is a drag and drop function that faculty members can access. They can just write their course program, activity, whatever. They can select which competency they're interested, that they're already talking about in their course through their activities, their assignments, or whatever that students are completing. And then if they were thinking like, well, my class involves critical thinking a lot, you can basically click on the skills and drag into the applied column. And then after that's done, you're able to upload this into your syllabus. So something very simple, very easy. We're not asking them to retransform it or rewrite their entire syllabi. We're just asking them to make sure to include the relevance, to be much more explicit about what they're learning, and using the language of employers as well as academia, so that students are able to translate themselves, and we're giving them the tools basically to this aspect of it. So a very simple, click on leadership, what skills are you learning in your class, drag, drop, and then you can basically upload this into your syllabus. So I'm sure that some of the folks on your campus may have the technical capacities and skills to develop something like this. Very simple, and using that information that's already available for free at on NACE's website here. So again, one thing I would emphasize and ask you to start reflecting is how the intentionality of including and incorporating career discussions across the career academic experience. Like I said earlier, not just during the early stages to help them select a major, but once they start taking classes, what information and what discussions are we actually engaging students with about what they're learning and how it actually connects with careers? How do we help them prepare for internships or plan for it, or just make them aware that there is such a thing and how to apply, making sure that they start connecting with employers in the area that they're interested in, and so on and so forth. So how intentional are we? When do we do it? And how do we make sure that we incorporate faculty members, administration, enrollment services, and so on and so forth, financial aid as well, into the processes, so that make sure that it is intentional and is built in for every single program, not just the typical business and computer science majors that tend to incorporate experiential learning and internships. How do we make sure that we incorporate those into humanities, social sciences, and so on and so forth? Again, same thing. I won't go to some of the best practices around K-12 because that's something too, right? I mean, we have a great partnership with, or we should have a great partnership with the K-12 system. How do we make sure that we start the conversation earlier while students are already in high school? What conversation are we having with the career counselors on their campuses, on their at their school, to make sure that they know what services we offer, that they know what the different majors are, and how we can make sure that they're on board. So I think a lot of the information that we can talk about and we can provide them around labor market data, around careers, around majors, can be presented to students during their high school days. We just need to literally have a conversation with the K-12 folks and make sure that there's as seamless of a transition as possible. There are other things, and I'm not sure about New England. I don't believe so, but there are some states that incorporate individual career academic plan as a requirement for high school graduation. And this is basically where students start that conversation and start that exploration, self-exploration. So if your school district or your state has that requirement or that activity as part of the K-12, how are we actually collecting that data and making sure that we're not asking students to redo and replicate the same exercise as they're applying to college? So how do we use the data that's already available to us to make sure that we help them transition to college and get them into a program that aligns with their ICAP, for example? And same thing when we're talking about purpose search, it is not just at the early stages, but also around career exploration and career development. So we need to make sure that our programs are actually meeting the needs of an employers. And I'll be honest, we need to tell employers how we are preparing students and making sure that they understand how college actually is relevant and aligns very well with the needs. Or if not, how can we align it very well with the needs and the skills and competencies that are required in the workforce as well. So having that conversation, having those connections as well is crucial. And again, if I'm a student and I see my institution is talking to employers and I'm here for a job, guess what? I see the relevance here. I see the intentionality here. I see the purpose about a college degree and how it's going to help me also connect and get into a good job associated with my program and my chosen career. So this is just again, I'm going really fast here, but this is just a quick representation of the onboarding aspect of it. And again, we're really focusing on the first year aspect of it here. So how do we start that conversation as early as possible during recruitment? When do we start providing them with career interest assessments or personal inventories? What's the conversation that follows once they actually complete those activities? Because it's them completing the assessment is not enough. Someone has to actually follow up with them and have a conversation, either a peer mentor, an admissions advisor, or orientation leaders and things like that. How we continue that conversation, again, being intentionally engaging the students. So as you see, and obviously the areas of recruitment, admissions, onboarding, and first year advising may maybe like an accordion. Some of your institutions, in some cases, the recruitment can be very short, or the onboarding can be the week before classes start, or if that. So I think that we can obviously, modify based on your institutional context. But how do we, again, actively integrate these processes and these information, activities, and assignments into the student experience so that we actively engage students in career exploration and major exploration throughout. And I want to make sure that you understand that there's a lot more to it. Like I mentioned, purpose search does not end at the end of the first year. It basically changes and evolves as the student progresses. And what we don't see a whole lot here is very much around like the faculty aspect of it. How do we change how we talk about the relevance of the courses? Why are students taking these classes? We need to be explicit about that. We need to be able to provide also academic advisors with good rationale as to why students have to take these particular classes. What are they going to learn in these classes? And it's not just check, a box that they needs to be checked in order to get a degree. So I mentioned earlier, this is where, it's on our website. We have a couple of publications. A lot of the information that I presented is already in these publications, Shared Beliefs, as well as College on Purpose. So you can access them. It's free. Everything is on our website is pretty much free. We have a couple of podcasts as well. One I did with the president of NCDA, the National College Development Association, around integrating career services and career information and career development into the student experience. So it's available on our website as well. Again, free podcast on this website. And one thing I would ask, and I would strongly recommend for you to complete a homework, or at least come prepared as you're coming into the fall meeting with your teams. Hopefully, again, not just you, but teams of different folks on different offices across the campus to talk about this, is start thinking about the student experience mapping on your campus. So what does it look like? When are you actually integrating career discussion and career information and major exploration and major information in the student experience? When are you doing it? How often? Who's doing it? What's the handoff? If how's the data collected and shared with other relevant offices? So having that student experience mapping, I think is a great exercise, period. But I think it's going to be very useful as you're thinking and looking into implementing purpose-first strategies. And I would also start looking, do a quick audit in terms of the personal career assessments and inventories on your campus. A lot of times, career services may have access to some of them. Student affairs may have some of them as well. But do we have enough licenses, for example, to scale it to every single student? What would it take? Which one is the best one? Like, have you talked to students? Have you talked to career services about their feedback about what are the best assessments out there? How can we start thinking about incorporating them as early as possible into the student experience, even potentially putting it on our website, or as the University of Oklahoma, incorporating into the admissions process. So students have to complete this before they even select a major, before they start, even attending orientation and so on and so forth. So having a quick audit as to what's available on your campus, that too, I think, is going to be really helpful as you move forward into the planning in terms of the discussion on what's available on campus. What can we do on campus without spending additional resources, because we already have those things. We may just not know about it. So I think that those two things is something that are things that I would recommend that you complete, or at least start the conversation with your colleagues in different offices before you come to the meeting on this fall in person. So with this, I would strongly also encourage you to follow us, come to our website. You'll see the different resources. I would encourage you, and I'm sure that Missy has already done so, but invited you to attend our annual convening in Las Vegas in December. So I used to live in Montreal. This is the accent. I probably should have started with this, like, what's this weird accent that I can't place? I'm from Montreal. So I know that December going to Vegas is probably not going to be a big ask for you guys from New England, although it's beautiful. It'll be nice to get out of the cold for a few days. So hopefully invite you there to attend the annual convening for during December in Las Vegas, Nevada. So with this, Missy, I pass it down to you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Comments?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Nikolas mentioned that podcast about what's the role of career services professionals in the student journey. I put that in the link in the chat, so you can access that right away. No, if folks aren't social media savvy or don't quite like it, you can engage with us on LinkedIn as well. So that's just another option for folks. But I do want to pause though, because we may have some questions. I didn't see any questions come in during the session. So just want to give pause to see if there's any questions that folks have now. Every and anything. We would love just to hear from you. So all right. Well, I'll say this. You do have our email addresses, so you can reach out to us. But we will also be in New England for convening in October. So we'll send details to that and include you on that list so you can actually meet us live and in person. And maybe that's the way you want to connect with us. So happy to have that there as well. So in closing out, just want to thank you for your time. I will follow up with you with more information about the upcoming convening that Nikolas mentioned. If there's any questions that come, because I know there's processing that may happen after the fact, and we can point you to some of those resources, happy to do that to you as well. So all that to be said, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving a bit of your time. Remember to put purpose first with your students and reach out if you need anything else. And
Thanks,
Nikolas,
everyone.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.